Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Word Balloon Live. John Suntress here. Really happy to welcome back Chris Cantwell to Word Balloon.
Hey.
Chris, it was so nice of you to be part of, and I hate to say it, John Con. Not my idea, as far as
Yeah,
calling it that, but that great hangout we did during San Diego week that Friday night. It was a lot of fun.
yeah,
You
that
were
was
a good
that
part
was
of it.
great. Yeah.
Th- Thank you, man. And really, congratulations on everything that's going on right now with you. Iron Man underway. Next issue coming out in about 2 weeks.
hmm
Um, but a great start. But we'll also talk about Doctor Doom as well. And on the television side, man, I was telling you before, Shelley Bond, when she's talking about Halt and Catch Fire, I'm like, oh, I've been meaning to watch that. And I'm like, I've been enjoying season one, and I will catch up. And hopefully by our next conversation, we'll be able to get more into that. But truly, man, that's exciting. And certainly we'll talk about Paper Dolls as well.
Paper
So,
Girls.
really, man, what's
Paper,
that?
Paper Girls. That's the
Paper
name of the book.
Girls.
Yes. No, it's fine. I'm just gonna tell Brian K. Vaughan. It's cool.
And Cliff. Cliff will kill me. Absolutely, man. That's fantastic. Paper Girls, absolutely, man. So let's see here. Already, man. First Iron Man issue was solid. Excited for more. I totally agree. We may as well
Thank you.
start with Iron Man. Absolutely, man. Uh, great art. Is it Salvador LaRocca doing it?
No, it's Kafu. Kafu was doing the art
Oh,
for
it's
Iron Man.
Kafu.
Yeah, so it's
Man.
it's really special. Yeah, Salva does Doctor Doom. So I work
Okay.
with
Oh,
Kafu
yes,
on
of
Doom.
course, and that's
Yeah.
probably why it was on my mind. But yeah, no,
hmm
Kafu, and also these great Alex Ross covers. Here's the first issue, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, Beautiful stuff, man. And we were talking off the air, and I love this direction for Tony. I always love when Tony goes back to the classic armor. And there really is something. I mean, I appreciate artists wanting to put their spin on the
hmm
armor, and certainly in this, I'm sure you've heard the phrase "toyetic." Do you know that phrase?
Yes. Yes.
I
Yeah.
love.
hmm
It's something I've only learned in the last couple of years, but it kind of cracks me up. And of course, kind of self-explanatory in terms of
Right.
great designs. But yeah, I do. There's just I have a Tim Seeley classic armor Iron Man on my walls, and I also have I got Dick Ayers before he passed away
Oh wow.
to not
Wow.
only do the classic armor, but do you remember? I don't think it even lasted a full year, but his faceplate had like the points at the top.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, yeah, that was a weird look. I like it. Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I wanted. So Dick Harris did that for me. So no, I'm a massive Iron Man fan. Even those years where people were like, whatever happened to Iron Man? It's like I was reading. The only time they lost me was when they turned him into a kid.
They turned him into a
Uh,
kid. Why have I not come across that in my
you didn't
research?
miss anything. You
Iron
didn't
Kid.
miss.
I'd read that.
They de-aged Tony. They made him a teenager. It was pretty crazy, and it was well before
Weird.
that Nickelodeon teenage Tony show that they did. But
Wow.
yeah,
So
yeah.
weird.
So tell me why Iron Man?
Well, I mean, the easy answer is that my editor, Tom Brevoort, who edits Doctor Doom, came to me and said, "Do you want to pitch on Iron Man?" And I said, "Yes." I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I think that it was really exciting, and from there, I really tried as hard as I could to put together a kitchen sink document um, of what the series could be. The story that I put together and the arc that I'm working on and that's slowly unfolding has been an evolution from that document. But I think there's some really interesting relevance to play with the character in terms of the way we might see billionaires today, the way that Tony's been seen in the Marvel universe for the last 10 years, basically, since he's become part of the Marvel cinema universe as well, cinematic universe. This is a different version of that, but there's a lot hanging on him just from the last 10, 12 years that I think is there to unpack from Bendis and Fraction's run and now Dan. Um, and it just has quite a legacy. I've never played with a character that has that much legacy. I mean, Doom's been around since the 60s, but um, I think I've gone through pretty much every major Doom story there is, but I'll never be able to do that with Iron Man just because there's so much. I think like my legacy numbering is like number 625 or something in the Iron Man legacy. So that's a lot. I mean, it's not 850, which is what Spider-Man is at today, but it's a sizable amount. So yeah, I mean, it was a crack at major player in the Marvel universe. And I grew up a Marvel kid, and it was already a dream come true when they reached out to me for Doctor Doom. So I was like, yeah, I got to do it.
Again, I love the idea that he's going back to basics. I love the car that he chose as
Yeah.
well.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's so weird. My weird COVID, I'm stuck inside and I don't know why this suddenly happened. I've been buying Hot Wheels and not like
Really?
really collectible ones. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love my Hot Wheels, but I've been buying ones that are tied to TV and film. So I got
Oh,
like
okay.
the Trans Am and the police car from Smokey and the Bandit, and I got
Nice.
the Blues Brothers car, and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. The
Mm-hmm.
Mystery Machine from Scooby Doo.
Nice. How do you
Yeah,
feel
that's
about
kind
how
of
do you feel about Matchbox cars?
sure. Oh no, 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 same thing, dude.
What is
I
the
growing
difference?
up.
I feel
There
like
might be
Matchbox is like a sophisticated, more delicate line of toy vehicle. I have no idea what it is, but
you know, I
or
don't
it's like
know, man.
matches to which to light the wheels, which then become hot. Like it's very confusing to me. I mean, but I think they're both owned by Mattel, so it's like, what's the difference? It's kind of like, are
Oh,
you feeling a
that's
little even keeled? Maybe a Matchbox. You want a
well.
lizard
I'm
on your car?
assuming
Hot Wheel.
that's hilarious. I don't know if they are making Matchboxes anymore, and I assume that like Mattel just bought Matchbox, buying the competition kind of thing.
Yeah.
As a little kid, again, man, I'm in my mid 50s, so I would get Matchbox cars either handed down or new ones as much as I did get Hot Wheels. And you're right, Hot Wheels were kind of more, as the title
You're like
suggests, yeah, the
sexier.
drag racers and race
Yeah.
car things and
I
stuff.
had those
And
too.
yeah,
I think they still make. I think they still make Match. I feel like I bought my
wouldn't
kids some
surprise me.
Matchbox at like the grocery store. Yeah.
There you go. Now that's crazy because honestly, all my grocery stores are like selling in a giant bin, like for $1 each,
Yeah.
a ton of Hot Wheels and stuff. And yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm not looking for anything collectible or rare. Just kind of okay. Like I bought, and also there were all these other companies that I think came out in the 2000s that made Hot Wheel sized cars for other things. So or other movie properties and stuff. So I have from Christine, I've got the
Oh,
Chevy from
nice.
Christine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crazy stuff like that. But anyway, enough. But I looking at Tony's car, I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can find that. That might be a fun car to get and everything. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why did you pick that car? And then right now, 78.
I think it's an Aspen, isn't it? I think he ends up
Oh
with
yes, it is a Dodge Aspen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why that car?
Well, I did a lot of research, and in terms of my new take on Tony, I mean, to really simplify it way down, it's to go from a computer scientist to a mechanic, right? That's the idea, is to really get into the metal of the suit and the guy, right? And to see this person actually have a garage instead of a lab, and to see him get his hands dirty again, to see his armor get dented and banged up, which is something that's going to continue. He's no longer. We're moving away, I think, from the living computer. We're going to get to some lofty places, but we want to start, at a ground floor that I'm familiar with, at least. And that was a way for me to hook it to the character. Was I grew up around cars and motorcycles because of my dad, so I was able to tap into that. And I looked up to a few upperclassmen at my high school who would soup up old muscle cars and things like this. And so, like, thinking of Tony and Iron Man like that, like I had a friend who he had a Chevy Nova. This was in Texas, and he bored out the cylinders of the Nova so that it had 500 horsepower. But when you do that, when you touch the gas, the car would just break traction. Like, no matter where you were, it would be in 7-Eleven parking lot. It'd be like everywhere. And I feel like that is a perfect allegory for Iron Man. Like, just because Tony is basically wearing the bored out cylinders Nova, and it can be unwieldy even for him, and he's just crashing into shit. And it's like that version of that mechanical machine version of Iron Man was really attractive to me.
That's fantastic. I'm being told in the chat that my voice is weird. Unfortunately, it's that microphone, and I do apologize.
Oh,
So if I sound like a
I thought you just meant in
nervous-
general, like in life. Your voice is weird.
So when I joined the cigarette company, I had no idea how dangerous they were. Oh, here's a good question, and I love that Hellcat is part of the series. Is
Yes.
Hellcat single? Is Patsy single right now?
Yeah, well, I think that's also referencing the end of the book where I think Tony gets that kind of tweet from somebody who's a Hellcat fan. But yeah, right now, I mean, she has a terrible history with relationships and having been married to the son of Satan, and
Yes.
there's going to be some stuff to unpack there. I think she's going
Hey,
to be
that's
a bigger
awesome.
part of the. Yeah, there's going to be a bigger. She's going to be a really big part of the book moving forward. I mean, I've written through issue 7, and we're still doing some pretty fantastic stuff with her, and I think she's just such a great foil for Tony because, for the most part, her superpower is being human, and she's just so basic in a wonderful way and elemental that it's a great contrast to Tony, who is just kind of overdrive, ego, adding fuel to the fire all the time, especially in I think this run that we're trying to do. So she can be a check against that, and I think she's going to end up being a little bit more of an internal character.
Okay.
So I'm excited. And again, the backstory of what happened with her and Damon, and Damon Hellstrom is going to be a part of this. It's basically a big forward part of her story, so it should be good.
That's excellent, man. And truly, I we'll talk about Doom later, but I love the cherry picking you're doing for some of these characters and stuff. And yeah, starting with Patsy, and also no, that's great to hear. Hellstrom.
Yeah, we've got some more coming in that on the villain side and on the hero side that was very fun. It felt like rooting through a toy box when you get to write a Marvel book. So, as long as I could make it make sense, Tom was up for it. So I think we've got some fun justification for why some people are showing up that you might not expect. But that was kind of the idea behind this book as well, which is to take Tony out of his comfort zone and maybe surround him with some people that are a little stranger to him than most. But that said, I think, people like James Rhodes are going to end up being a huge part of this book. It's just going to take us some time to get back to Rhodey. So yeah, it'll be a fun blend.
That's awesome, man. Zach has an interesting question, marrying the two series that you've done. Loving Doctor Doom and the Iron Man launch was great. What do you see as the differences between the relationships between Tony and Victor and Reed and Victor? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, that is. I would say hatred, right? I think that Victor has such a hatred, which probably is covering up some sort of like brotherly love for Reed, right? There's a sibling rivalry there between the two of them.
Interesting.
I feel like Tony is also a master intellect, but I feel like Victor, for some reason, I feel like Victor, it would be easier for Victor to blow Tony off. Like, I know that there's been a lot of story told between the two of them, particularly with Infamous Iron Man, and that's a really fascinating story, but I feel like they can kind of maybe bury the hatchet a little bit easier than Victor and Reed because they've been at each other's throats for so long. I mean, Tony and him have certainly had their battles, but a lot of their stories, even going back to like Doom Quest, have been them almost accidentally working together, and that's something that I'm playing with the one issue that Salva's drawing, which is the one shot we're doing for King in Black when it's Doom and Iron Man together fighting Santa in December, which should be pretty fun. Yeah, so they fight Santa together, and yeah, they end up working together. I think they work well together because, I don't know, I feel like Victor doesn't feel Tony's a challenge to him, and Tony's like, this guy's silly. You know what I mean? I feel like Tony's kind of the cool guy in class, and Victor is this weirdo, and so they're kind of oil and water. So it's kind of fun to actually put them together.
That's cool. That's cool. I'll ask the chat because people are saying problem with your mic, John. I just want to make sure that I'm being heard. I know Chris can obviously hear me, but just let me know in the chat, everybody, if it's just that it sounds weird. I can work on the balance and stuff. But back to the story. Now, some people are asking questions that might be reveals that you don't want to give, but they're asking about various characters that might pop up. Somebody asked if the Avengers are eventually going to show up as a whole.
I mean, Tony's connection to the Avengers is extremely important to his life and story. They're you can't completely remove him from where he's been and what he's done and who he's often connected with. But I think we've come up with, I mean, even in the first issue and as it moves forward, reasons for Tony to be off on his own, to maybe recalibrate a little bit in his mind, especially after the events of Empire, especially after the events of Iron Man 2020, to really look at himself and go, man, and you know, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be folks showing up. And I think even, you know, towards this run, this story I have is, there's arcs within it, but it's a pretty big run that should take us, you know, a while, and it'll get big enough where the Avengers are going to be showing up and being like, hey, what's going on? It's because Tony always thinks he has everything under control, but he eventually loses control, and people have to come in and go, stop it, or, you know, let me help you. And you know, I think that it'll get to that place, but we still have a while.
Okay, and also, and I'm not going to name names because forgive me, chat people in the chat, but I would rather be surprised by the old Iron Man villains that show up. But there have been some big, powerful names that, if you have a short list of Iron Man villains, likely these men are on there. Might we see more recognizable in his biggest bads coming up? And if you want to reveal it, that's your discretion.
I mean, I think that issue 2 has a fun villain that is not often associated with Iron Man. It's someone that I remember from my childhood that I came in for it just to kind of kick things off a little bit for him. And this new version of Iron Man, what is he encountering every day? There are going to be a lot of cameos. Some villains appear for like one panel, like, or a page. I just tried to put a lot of classic people into there, but there are a handful of major player characters that are, again, I'm through 7 and they're hanging out, and they show up pretty soon. And you know, our big bad, which is not a secret because you can read the solicit copy on previews, but is Korvac. Is that Korvac has returned, which is something that Al Ewing set up in Marvel 1000 last year. And I only recently learned of Korvac in the last couple of years, and so those two things coincided. And then with me getting this book, like, my pitch was, I almost wanted to work Korvac into Doom, but it works so well for Tony, and as a new villain for Tony, and as someone Tony has actually faced before and died, but it hasn't been directly an Iron Man villain. So, you know, it's got a classic air to it, but again, it's a reinvention because, you know, the way that Al set it up is that the Enclave has built a new Atom android, and it comes online, and it's actually Korvac's consciousness in an Atom android. Atom being the technology that the original Human Torch is from. He was the first android of that. So Korvac is, I mean, I'm spoiling a little bit, but like, that was in Al's book, which is like, Korvac is also Atom 4, right? So it's the 4th incarnation of the Atom android, which I'm going to play with as well.
That sounds great, man. No, it's very exciting. I know I'm enjoying the story, and again, based on what you did with Doom and the interesting combinations of characters that you put in that book, and I mean, really, and sometimes, you know, I'm kind of light on my Marvel history. I don't know how often Kang and Doom have been together, but God, that was so great.
Yeah,
the two of them.
I love them. I mean, you know, there's a lot of tie between Kang and Reed in terms of lineage, and then you have Doom obviously being very connected to Reed. You know, they were paired together quite well in Secret Wars, the original one. They're just two self-serious blowhards, so I love putting them together. Again, like Kang feeling like, I mean, I feel like my version of Kang is like a little bit more absurd version of Victor, right? Where it's like a guy that has time traveled so much he doesn't quite know where he is ever. Yes. And we never know what version of him we're getting, and Doom doesn't either. So like that story to me of like, in the background, Kang is just lost through time and just going crazy because he's just totally like, he's just abused his power so much. That to me was really fun. And again, like, it's another frenemy, right? Like, you can do a frenemy with Kang, because if they're related and Doom's related to Reed, like, you know, I think issue 6, I even went off on that for a little while in a riff of like, who's related to who and how, and does it matter, and does it mean we like each other or hate each other or both? You know, Kang is a fun character for me because you can be silly with Kang a little bit.
I hear you, man. No, I agree, and yeah, it's just he really was. He was like the absent-minded time. He's like Doctor Who.
Yeah,
It's
he's
like,
like,
yeah,
where
where
am
am
I?
I? What
Yeah,
am
I
I
mean,
doing?
yeah, exactly. He has no idea where and what version and like all that stuff. And yeah,
Yeah. No, and man, heartbreaking watching Doom with the Latverian scientist. At first, I wondered if it was Susan, and that it was kind of a Secret Wars tie-in with Hickman's event, where Doom kind of remade the universe, and Susan was his consort, and
uh,
a willing
right.
consort at that.
Wait, which scientist are you talking about? Female scientist?
Isn't that her name? The woman that from the Doom miniseries, the Latverian expat, wasn't she a scientist?
Well, there's
The
Victoria,
blonde,
right, which is Zora, creation of Dan,
right?
right, and then
And then of
she's a
course
big part of the story.
Valeria
And
in
then
Hell.
I'm sorry. Yes, Virginia, the woman he sees in the future as his wife. Sorry,
Yes.
that's a major point in the book. It's been a while since
Oh
I
man, it's all
wrote
good.
two, and then the pandemic happened, so now the issues are just coming out, so I have to like reach back to last year. Um, but yeah,
Okay.
Regina, that was fun for me because then you have a character who sees a life that is wonderful, but he has no idea how to get from where he is to there, right? And the last thing you can do is walk up to a woman who you believe you're married to in the future and say, "Hey, we get married." Especially if you're Doctor Doom, they're gonna not enjoy that, and I think it's it's hard for him to accept that, and it's hard for him to see it. It becomes painful, and then it's hard for him to accept that he can't have it right away because that's another problem that Victor has constantly.
You might have seen Sal Avenatti, who is Alex Ross's rep.
Oh yeah, I
He's
did. Oh, I'm
commenting
so glad. I
on
mean,
the covers, and yeah, that Alex is loving the gig, and that's great to hear too.
yeah, I mean, everything he's doing is amazing, and the way he designed the armor has been incredible. And when I see the Alex covers come in, it's the fact that I even kind of get to suggest like maybe what about this for cover, and then he draws something like beautiful, and I'm like, well, here's my Word document, like it's funny. He's I mean he's an institution unto himself, and so for him to be on this book, it's like it's literally a dream come true. I feel incredibly humbled. I hope the material inside the book lives up to Alex's covers. That's a big thing in my head, and Kafu might even feel the same way. I mean, like Kafu was pretty great, so it's like the story has to be great to live up to those two guys. So, yeah.
Well, again, I was going to say that between Alex and Coffey, they're giving you A-list guys, and truly, man, great first issue, unbelievable first
Thank
issue,
you.
and so,
Yeah.
this is the great thing that the heroes are played a certain way, and then all of a sudden a new creative team comes in, and it's like, okay, time for a left turn, and that happened with Wade Insomnia on Daredevil, and I really think you're doing it again now with Tony, and again, there's nothing wrong with what came before it. Dan, like you said, you rattled off the list. Dan did a hell of a job. All these people did, but
Yeah.
I really do think that it's
The
Tony can
characters,
handle this,
the
and
characters
also
are
it's still consistent. It's still consistent with
yeah.
the character.
The characters are you can't really dismantle Iron Man at this point, right? Like I mentioned, 625 in terms of legacy numbering, like. But what's great is they're also kind of like our modern day, Greek mythology. So they become infinitely malleable at the same time, right? So there are these like indestructible pillars of characters, and yet we can see new ways and new iterations and uncover new things about them because they're also kind of just avatars and archetypes for story in this wonderful way that, it's a very unique type of storytelling to work with superheroes and characters this old because they need to be reinvented, and I don't even reinvented. Maybe even is too strong a word. You can't reinvent. It's like you can chisel away at. You know what I mean? You can do something. Yeah. You can just position the lights differently on a Rembrandt painting, and it's a different painting. You know what I mean? Like
I do.
Maybe that's all we're doing. I don't know.
But again, no, it's consistent with the character, but it's a way we haven't seen the character in a while. Now, some people are going to point out, like, and I don't know how to say his names, but I'm going to say the mightiest. Why did you make Tony and Janet break up? Sorry for all the questions, by the way, but that's all right, man.
Why did I make Tony and Janet break up? I just feel like I don't want to spoil the ending of Iron Man 2020, but like some serious stuff happens to him, and um, I feel like if anything, he's probably been distant, and yeah, that probably deserved more space, and I might have been a little glib with it in terms of just like dumping more like sadness on Tony in the first issue. Um, but that said, like I loved the way that that relationship was portrayed, and I think it was really strong. If anything, I was worried that just breaking them up, because again, Tony just felt like he was in such a different place after Iron Man 2020 that I felt like that relationship was something to examine. I was worried that that was going to just take up so much real estate, when what I wanted to do was be looking forward with him. And so I thought it was funny for her to break up with him as a little wasp from behind a glass window. I know that's terrible when you see a writer just laugh about something that made you sad, but like, I was like, I don't know, like, also Janet's like, you know, kind of great and self-actualized in her own character. Like, is she really going to sit around and wait for Tony to like rectify his virtual consciousness and new cell-grown body and his new little muscle car? I mean, it's just kind of like, it's like, you know, it was like, I wanted it to be amicable too, you know what I mean? I didn't want it to be like, I hate you. It's just like, the thing with relationships, even in TV and film, you know, and in comic books, is like, are they together or are they not together? And it's really hard to keep that fresh. And so I just wanted a slate. If I was going to go down the road of relationship with Tony, I just wanted new blocks. No offense to Janet Van Dyne.
No, I think again, you're right. It's consistent with the characters. They were friends long before they got involved, and that happens a lot. And I think especially with the familiarity of a friend suddenly becoming a lover.
It's kind of like Captain Kirk in a way, you know, where it's like he's constantly running into Starfleet women he had relationships with in the past, and he's like, oh, hey, what are you doing on said planet? He's like, well, I'm a lawyer now. Well, good for you, you know. And then there's always like some like electricity in the air, and then he moves on, and then there's some green alien woman or an android, and he's like, well, I got to seduce this android because we got to get out of here.
Robot sex. There's nothing like it. I completely agree.
Like
Sal wants you to bring Iron back his skates back. Well, now that he's
no spoilers. I'm not going to say yes or no, but like those roller skates are on my mind. I know. I know they're there. I know they're right there in the toolbox. But I'm no spoilers.
Fair enough. This is nice, and now I'm going to follow up with a question. Living up to Ross's standard is a big ask, but you and Cafu are doing it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And also, Dave asks, is Reed still the smartest guy in the Marvel Universe?
I was stirring the pot online today, or was it yesterday? Someone was like, what's your controversial comic book opinion? It's one of those questions. Okay. And I was like, Doom is smarter than Reed Richards, which is just such a great, like, just tinder. Like, I mean, you can just start a bonfire if you do that. I think what's... do I actually believe Victor is smarter than Reed? I don't know. I don't know if you could quantify it. You know what I mean? I do. Here's what I do think about Reed that people, I think some people get this right. I don't think Reed is such a great guy. I think Reed is when he's my favorite Reed is when he is so kind of intellectually passive aggressive, but then can also defend it 100% and seem blameless. And I think like there's a pretty good Reed Victor issue of Doom coming, and it's issue 9, and it was my one issue that I really wanted to do Reed and Victor, and I think I tried to get to the crux of what drives Victor insane about Reed and have the reader see it from Victor's point of view and see what happens. And again, I do think it is this kind of like, you know, like the empty behind the eyes, like great idea, you know, like, but also instilling in you like this really deep-seated doubt about yourself as a human, you know, like I just feel like he's very good at that. And like, I tried to touch on that. I got to write him again too in the Fantastic Four one-shot that's coming out in December. He's on a road trip with his family and he's trying to plan this kind of great trip, but again, he can't not be himself. And that causes the family a lot of trouble. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, he probably is, but I mean, there's so many different versions of intelligence in the Marvel universe. Somebody was pointing out to me today online that it's like, well, Victor has the whole magic side of things that, you know, Reed blows off. So it's like, it is true. I mean, like, none of them are well-rounded individuals, but yeah, all their intellects get them into trouble.
I don't know if it'll ever show up. Is your Doom series? Is it a maxi series? Is it an
Yeah.
ongoing?
So it's
12 issue maxi.
So it ends in December. So there's 8 is this month, and then 9 in November and 10 in December, and then there's the little Coda fight Santa story that we'll do.
That's outstanding. I don't know, and it's funny. Ed says Doom is smarter. Ben Grimm is not impressed. I was gonna say I don't know if you ever play with the Ben Grimm Doom relationship because it doesn't always get a lot of play, but I always say, and I am sorry, forgive me everyone who's heard me say this a million times, but now I'll bore Chris with this. I think Ben, as far as Victor and Ben, especially when they were in college, Victor is that twerp
Yeah.
that hated Reed, and Ben is that dumb jock
Yes.
that he has no idea why Reed even associates with them. And both of them are still stuck in their college mentality. That's why Ben calls him Vic and is so unimpressed with Doom. And again, I do love those. So I don't know if that's ever a conversation between Ben
Yeah.
and Doom is coming up.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, I got to write Ben in the one shot, but Ben does not appear in the Doctor Doom series because again, the mandate for Doom was to like again get him out of his comfort zone and see what else you could do with the character rather than just like combat the Fantastic Four over and over again. I do obviously think that's an important relationship with him, but to kind of go off on his own and experience some kind of little saga that then he can carry with him into the bigger books, you know, moving forward. And you know, Ben and Victor I think is very interesting. I only got to write Ben in this one shot, and you know, for me, the thing that always bothered me about the Thing when I was a kid, I was scared of him because he had this rocky skin, and I imagined pieces of that coming off. And so that's what happens in the Fantastic Four one shot. It's on the cover is like those chunks of him start coming off, and it's what Felipe has done is like just very disturbing. It brings a childhood horror to life in a way that I was not prepared for to see on the page. It was easy to write and fun to write, but then to see it, you're like, oh God. So it's very upsetting to me. It's like, what is that called? Like trypophobia or something where you have trouble with like multiple holes when they're all together or something, like lotus blossoms. I have that. Like I can't look. I feel like the Thing for some reason evokes like my trypophobia in there for some reason.
Interesting. I agree with Chaz. He says Grimm and Doom are two of the best character designs ever. I love in the Doom story that you strip Doom away of his armor. And man, I loved him in the hoodie. And
we did the hoodie. I was happy with the hoodie and the old mask. Great. I think was really fun. You know, and the sneakers. It was like, yeah, we got to do that. You know, but then for a while we got future armor. We did the tribunal mask. I mean, you got to do some of that stuff because it's so much fun of the characters that you don't want to get lost in it. But the same is true for Tony, right? And I think the fun we're having with it now is like he has one suit, it's in a suitcase, and you can see his eyes. Like that to me was like, whoa, let's play with that for a while. You know, the armor is such a big, important part of the characters.
Oh, absolutely. But honestly, I loved that you were playing with too that no, he didn't even have the bandages, and you saw his exposed face when he's talking to Morgan Le Fay in the earlier issues and stuff. Mm-hmm. And he's in.
Yeah, he just has the scarf around his face, and I mean, the first issue of Doom, because I mean, where it came from was like, how does Doom sleep, right? And that I literally wrote that scene because it was like, I wanted to show his whole routine at night, even as a royal emperor. What does he have to do? And it's very special, like ointments and oils and stuff that he treats his terrible skin with, and he wraps himself up like the Invisible Man. And like, what's his bedroom look like? Like that, I was interested in that because everybody thinks about the armor, but it's like at some point the dude's got to shower. You know what I mean? Like, and so there's something interesting there of like, how does a man, and especially Doom, because he's so lonely of a character. He's a very lonely character. I feel like almost with the Fantastic Four, it's like, let me be a part of it. Why can't I be a part of your family? Like, I'm so good. And like, he's just such a lonely dude. So I really wanted to drive home, like, well, if anybody's taking care of his face, it's him, and he's by himself, and he's just he gets in the giant bed, and it's just him. You know what I mean? And it's just stillness, and that's where the impetus for the dreams start happening, and the visions of actually having a family, which is somehow in the future he has a complete different 180 existence.
I do. I love that early on too. And it really mostly happened, I guess, in that first issue. But I love seeing kind of the West Wing version of Latveria and how it's
how it would work.
organized.
Showing his
what's his day to day routine as the leader of this country.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And everything else that he's dealing with, and then of course has time to take revenge on the news anchor that was shitty to him and stuff.
Who actually he will come back. I think you'll blink and miss him, but he does return. I think towards the end, maybe in issue 9. I think, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's seriously, man. No, it's terrific, and again, Silver Sable and all these characters that you're throwing in there.
Well, I wanted to do.
Go ahead.
It was a big important thing for me to do. I wanted to do kind of some geopolitical drama with him. I mean, that maybe doesn't sound that exciting, but it's like there's some like Tom Clancy-ness you can do with where he's strategically positioned in the world. You know what I mean? And this idea of Symkaria and this contested area, and I got to invent some Latverian cities and like what's their biggest port, and understanding why there may be a coup, and for what reason, who's looking for power, who's standing to gain, that kind of drama. And then, obviously he's removed from a lot of that, but like thrusting Victorious in there, it's like the brand new leader, experiencing the huge crisis. Like that to me is very interesting. Like the regent who steps in and is like, oh, it's like Kissinger having to make decisions while Nixon's drunk on the couch. You know what I mean? Which is like, this is technically treason, but like, I've got to maybe do something about Vietnam. That kind of stuff is interesting.
I completely agree. I think it only makes the 616 world or universe that much more interesting when there are complications, but also ramifications when something happens in one area, how it affects the rest of the world or universe.
And I don't know how long. I mean, everything can be undone, but I will attempt to make some changes to Latveria. And that'll this month there will be that kind of chapter of the story, and we'll see how long it holds until someone decides that, I don't know, Symkaria was never there, or what. You know what I mean? It was a hologram projected by the Beyonder. Who knows? But like I tried to leave a little fingerprint there of like, no, it's a little different, so we'll see if it sticks.
Well, that's interesting because Dave Thomas has a good question that dovetails into that. If another writer goes into a different direction with Tony in another series, do you guys confer to each other on how the character is handled? Are you the Iron Man keeper right now and the Doctor Doom keeper because of these active series? Do they have to like say, hey, I wanted to use Doom this way? Does that hurt your story or whatever?
Well, it's funny, right? Because I mean, you want the answer to be like, yeah, it's all sacred and doesn't cross over, but it actually. I mean, the joke was, I think that the same issue where Doom was being overthrown, like in Amazing Spider-Man, he was being assassinated in like another coup, and I was like, Tom, should we call the Spider-Man office and see what's going on? And I try to obviously be careful with that. I mean, the main book is Fantastic Four. Like that was clear, and I was okay with that hierarchy because the FF is the kind of the hallmark family, and if they needed him, I was going to cede whatever to them. But I finished my 10 issue story, and but Jerry Duggan was really cool and reached out to me and was like, he's stepping into Savage for a second. Like, I think I'm going to try to tie a little thing up on the end to make it make sense with yours. And this whole idea that stories aren't contemporaneous, that's huge for me too. Like King in Black is a big crossover. Obviously, I do my little Tony story in there, but and Tony's a big part of the story that Donnie's writing. But there's not going to be multiple issues of Iron Man where the world is encased in symbiote black and all this. And you know, there's a little montage at the beginning of 3 where it's like weeks and weeks of Tony on the streets and trying to work himself back up. And you know, Tom and I talked at the summit a little bit about like King in Black is probably happening somewhere in there. So like Iron Man might be happening after King in Black, even though King in Black issues will be coming out for a while, you know, like that kind of thing. And then in terms of conferring with writers, I mean, like I talked to Dan more about Victorious and permission to use Victorious in Doom because I was really fascinated with that character. But Dan brought things to such a conclusion in Iron Man 2020 that it was like, okay, you know, and I hope I stay on the book for a while. I really love writing it, and you don't want to like be taken off a title. But when and if there is a new writer, I'm happy to talk to them. But also, like I said, it's like Iron Man. Like, you know, it's like my issues are out there. They can read them and just kind of, they do something completely different. That's what the whole game's about, and it's fun.
Very cool. The Outsider. I feel like Tony in other books, such as Avengers or recently Thor, is more of a generic character approach to Iron Man. So very glad to have a series that goes in depth. Well, that's nice.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to go deep. I mean, I think that, you know, Donnie is like one of the most preeminent comic book writers in history. So like, I think what he does is genius. So it's like, I was just happy to be part of King in Black. Like, I don't know. I'm still trying to get Donnie to follow me on Twitter. So like, you know, fuck me, I guess. You know what I mean? So whatever, dude. Yeah, thanks. I mean, you're still reading Thor, so don't give him any shit. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
Hilarious. No, he'll roll with that. That's fantastic. No, and I would say to the Outsider too. It's like, yeah, a lot of times when you know, check the name on the title. It's a Thor book, so maybe you know again when other characters show up, it's in to counterweight or reflect you know Thor as perceived by these other heroes and stuff. I mean, God, Zdarsky had Spider-Man in his Daredevil run before all the court stuff got started. And you know, again, it was a very one note. Actually, it was a very dark Spider-Man, but it was a very one note Spider-Man. Really like, hey, you're fucking up, man. And, and I, you know, again, that's what's great about a lot of these characters, and it depends on the writer and the story they're telling. But you really can get deep and really explore a relationship.
I know I've been catching flack for how I portrayed Blue Marvel in Doom, and people don't dig it. I think this issue was like finally like, oh, he's like getting in there and doing some serious stuff. And 8 is even more so that. But for me, again, like you just said, when you bring a character into another character's title book, you're bringing that character in not just as a device, but as some sort of interesting mirror with which to reflect the title character, right? And I needed someone who was as intelligent as Doom and who was as virtuous as Doom was not in the present, because Doom is seeing himself in the future, and he doesn't understand this future version of himself, and he just despises it and resents it and then wants it. And, you know, Brashear is just like this awesome person. And what I wanted to do with Brashear is have him confront the infinite complexity of Doom's villainy and have it just confound him the way that no science or mathematical problem ever would, but more just like, what is up with this guy? You know, like this guy is so twisted, and have him. I want to have Brashear have a little bit of a loss of innocence too in the book, and that's where things are headed. And this is the most pompous thing I think I say about him sometimes in the book is, for me in Doom, Brashear is kind of like John in Revelation. You know, he goes up on the cliff and watches some insane stuff happen and goes, I don't know what that meant. Like, I'm totally spun out. I'm completely confused. What's going on? Like, I thought I believed this. Is this true over here? And like that to me is Brashear kind of bearing witness to Doom's saga. I mean, he's the one that's closest to Doom in terms of all the stuff that Doom goes through. He will be the only one fully aware of what happens at the end of the book. It'll just be him and Victor. They're the only ones that will share that secret. No one else will know, not even Victorious. And so he is borne witness to some pretty intense stuff in the book, and I wanted to do that because the character's so virtuous, he could carry it and also be profoundly affected by it. You know, I couldn't do a book where it was Blue Marvel kicking ass. That's Blue Marvel the book. You know what I mean? Like that, and that would be an amazing book. There should be that book, but I couldn't do that. It was a Doom book, and I just loved the other side of the coin of that being, here's a brilliant scientist who's functional and has a daughter and he's good, and that to me was interesting.
I agree, and also again, not an obvious choice to counterweight Doom, and a great choice. And again, it was like, oh, this is really cool. I don't know if I've ever seen Blue Marvel face Doom before. Again, I'm not the diligent Marvel reader that others are.
Well, you know, people get pissed off. It's like, oh, he lost, and it's like, well, fuck. You know what I mean? It's like, how could Silver Sable throw him? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm sure I could get the drop on the Dwayne the Rock Johnson from behind for a half a second before he went antimatter reactor on me. I don't think Brashear's antimatter reactor when he's ordering fucking pizza. You know what I mean? It's like, the guy most of the time is like, oh, I should go get my mail. I feel like you could get one punch in on the guy before he's like, now I have to kill you and go inside the sun. You know what I mean? Like, he has to have human qualities.
Well, I think, and again, maybe this is me not reading into him enough, but I always think he's like a reluctant hero, that he would much rather be the regular guy.
Yes.
So when he's needed, he'll come. But yeah, it's like, and that's how I took him in the Doom story of, I don't do this every day.
Reed is like,
Reed
is like, hey, can you do this? And it's like, and even, not to quote my own stuff, but in issue 7, which just came out, is he says to his daughter, like, you're an amazing scientist. I wish I could have just been a scientist instead of the experiment. Like, that to me that's his mindset of like, I hate this about myself sometimes. It's a big burden to carry, and there's going to be a lot more of that in 8. You think he has a pretty cool little internal odyssey throughout that issue.
That sounds great, man. No, it's going to be a lot of fun finishing this up. So it's been worth the wait, Chris. Honestly,
thanks. I'm really I'm glad it came back, man. It was, I am too.
Yeah, I can only imagine, Jesus. And again, I'm glad we're on the other side of that. Well, like I said, I want Halt and Catch Fire. I'll say this: I having grown up in that period and loving things before it, like Pirates of Silicon Valley. I didn't get the chance to interview Noah Wiley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, back when he was doing Falling Skies. And I'm like, man, you're so ensconced with TNT. I would love to see you get back to playing Steve Jobs again. And his eyes got big, and he said, yeah, believe me, we're having conversations. I hope eventually it happens, because I would love to, especially kind of like returning to the character the way some great actors were able to do in other films back in the old days in Hollywood and stuff. But yeah, I love where Halt and Catch Fire is as a story, and a lot of great actors on that show. I forget the woman's name that was also in The Martian.
Mackenzie Davis.
She's amazing. Yeah, and really the entire cast up and down.
We couldn't get that cast. We couldn't get that cast now. I think we really lucked out. Like, we just couldn't. We couldn't lock up those people now for a single show. It would be impossible. And we lucked out with having that ensemble. It was really great.
4 seasons or 5 seasons?
4.
4. Okay, great.
But it covers 12 years of history. So it ends in 95.
That's awesome.
Which is fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, seriously, man, I feel very fortunate having grown up when I did. I had college friends that were making homemade computers with wooden consoles and stuff like that. They were big techies. And so it's really been fun being ringside for the reality, and really you capture the spirit of that period very accurately.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely. And tell us about Paper Girls, and how did you get involved with Paper Girls?
Paper Girls, when we first told Halt and Catch Fire, Chris Rogers and I had no TV experience, so we were paired with a showrunner named Jonathan Lisco. And that was a real gift to us, because, sometimes that can go horribly wrong. And when you pair a showrunner with a creator, and he was amazing with us and very transparent. He taught us the ropes. He was, all about making the best version of our vision of the show, of which he shared, but and all the writers in the room. But that was such a gift to us that that's the way we started our TV career. And I think that's a major part of our success, is that we want to pay that forward. So, Paper Girls, obviously Brian wrote this incredible series, and which predates Stranger Things, by the way. That's important.
Absolutely.
Yep. And Steph Folsom, was a colleague of his and buddy. And Steph, was no slouch. She was coming out of Marvel and working on Thor 3 and co-writing Toy Story 4 and all of these things. And he finally turned to her, I don't know, a year or so ago and said, okay, you can have the rights. Just kind of like, it's like, see what you can do with it. And so they put together a pitch and they sold it. So like, and that was before I even knew it was coming. So that was last summer. And then Chris and I were approached by Legendary and Amazon, and they were saying, Steph's never run a show. We need some showrunners to come in. We love you guys. We love Halt and Catch Fire. We feel like there's a good kind of positive tone in this show, even though some really intense stuff is going to happen. It's very unique tone, very unique character work. And so we came in and we met with Steph and we started working with her. And again, we're trying to do the best version of the show that she sold and that Brian wrote, right? So it's like we're definitely, I'm taking a page from my mentor and being like, and I'm not mentoring Steph Folsom. Like, she could do the whole show herself because she's been, working with major places for a long time. If anything, I think Chris and I just feel lucky to be there. But, we've come in to foster a really great writer's room and put this together and see what the story would actually look like in television form, which is going to be different because the graphic novel takes place over 48 hours. So, it's going to be different, but it's also going to be the same, and I'm very excited with what we've put together for it. And we've been working on it for now about a year. And, obviously the world's all messed up, but we'll get to it and it'll be, I think, something really, really special.
Well, we're all excited to see it. I got to ask it, I mean, really, like you just said, media production has really gone through the ringer with COVID and everything. How different are things in general? I mean, I know the obvious, like casting and not being able to start production when you want to. I was just talking to Rodney Barnes about the things he's going through with Philadelphia and everything coming up. But I mean, how much has the business changed from a temporary standpoint, or even again going back to Halt and Catch Fire and what you've experienced so far?
I don't know when we'll ever get back to something like that. I have to be honest and say it's already so different. And I mean, like, this chair I'm sitting in, like, this is my job, is sitting in this chair now. Like, I'm talking to producers here, I'm talking to executives here, I'm talking to my co-showrunners here. When we run a writer's room, I'm talking to them from here. We're running the room here. Eventually we're going to have to get off our asses and shoot, but like, there's the way things are shot is going to be very different, and it's going to take a long time for it to go back to the way it was. And I really miss that. I haven't been on a film set for 2 years. I directed a film 2 years ago, and it's grueling and it's exhausting, but it is such a specific sense of community and family with the film crew. On good days, on bad days, on days when you're not getting along, on days when you do, and it's great. It's a really special thing, and aside from the business and the economics of it all, it is sad to lose that. And again, I haven't been on a set since this happened. I know that, there have been a lot of committees to put together white papers on safety procedures, and unions have specific rules about being tested 3 times a week. And there's distance, there's masks, there's quarantine, and there's still breakouts happening. I mean, I think I just saw before I logged on with you that the Jurassic World movie stopped because they had an outbreak. And look, it's not that, what I've heard recently is, it's not that you're not going to have a positive case. It's that how you're prepared to handle the positive case, how you're prepared to handle and protect everybody around you. And that to me is the most important. No, all this stuff is awesome, but like, it's not worth anyone dying or giving it to someone else. So it's like, I'd much rather not shoot. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is fine. We'll figure the other stuff out later. They're starting to figure out how to do it safely. And I'm somebody who is very skeptical and pragmatic and cautious. And there are some places that are starting to figure out how to do it. And unfortunately, I mean, it's a weird thing to say, but the bigger places are figuring that out because they have the capital to spend on doing that. Independent films are suffering. Obviously, mid-budget films are suffering. They don't have the same kind of support. And then you've got the dangerous situations where people are skirting the regulations because they don't have the information, they don't have the funding to do what they need to do. They're not testing on set, they're on honor system stuff, and that's extremely dangerous, and no independent film is worth that. Now, if we lose all of independent film because of that, that'll suck. You know what I mean? Like and we only have a Jurassic Park movie and a Marvel movie and a Star Wars movie every year, and we call it, you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
the theatrical experience is, they don't know if it's going to recover at all. I mean,
right.
It sucks. You know what I mean? And Paper Girls is very exciting, and we're all holding our breath to see if the production schedule holds. You know what I mean? And all I can say is there are shows that are back, and there are a lot of shows that are doing a great job, and they are like locking it down. And there are some shows that are back that are not, and they are screwing around, and people are getting sick, and that's not good. So, yeah.
I hear you, man. A couple
bummer,
of paper.
At least we have comic books. That's why I was like, when that happened, and it was like, oh, we're gonna stop. And then Diamond was like, yeah, we're not gonna put any comic books out. And then Tom calls me, he's like, hey, we gotta stop Doom. It's like, cool. I'm just gonna drive into the desert. I'm done. You know, like, what's the point? I'll raise my children, and that's it. And then I'm just gonna call it. I'm gonna go to bed.
I understand, Chris. No, yeah. I know, and truly, that's been a recurring conversation on Word Balloon. Is how has the current status quo affected your creativity in positive or negative ways? And I can appreciate that frustration on all fronts. That's got to suck. So yeah,
it's banking scripts and then also finding the energy to do it. You know, and that goes for comics too. You know, you're like, well, I can only go. I mean, like, look, the only place I go is the grocery store. You know, the gas station, Target, maybe to pick up some takeout food, and like the comic book store, because the comic book store here by me is extremely safe. It's one of the only places I feel safe taking my kids. I'll take them there before the grocery store.
I'll give them a shout out.
It's the only place to go. You know what I mean? And so it's like the bubble of our worlds have become so small. It's just crazy.
Hey, give them a shout out. Let's promote
it's store that's doing it. Four Color Fantasies in Rancho Cucamonga. It's in the Inland Empire in California, Southern California. The owner, Chris Brady, such a smart, such a nice guy, such a safe person when it's come to this. Reorganized his entire store. I did a signing there. I felt very safe. The people who came were very safe. It was great, and he's been fantastic the way he's integrated mom and pop kind of mask maker company. Then they've been making custom superhero masks, and he now made a space for them in the store, so you can go in there and get a mask in the store, which is very cool. And they gave me one for free, so my mask is an Iron Man mask, and he's just an awesome dude, awesome place.
That's amazing. That's fantastic, man. All right, a couple more questions, and then if it's okay, because I know we're about an hour.
Of course.
I don't want to. Okay, thanks, buddy. First of all, John makes a nice comment. Chris is an impressive writer, new to comics. Love Dr. Doom and Iron Man, a new must-read creator for me. That's nice.
Thank you.
Very cool. Again, the Mightiest wanted to know what your thoughts were putting Halcyon in Iron Man issue 1.
Yeah, so after Doom, I was itching to create somebody myself. I was like, I want to have my own. And they're always like, don't do that. You want to do it. Don't, they're going to own it. But I was like, look, and I guess maybe I'm spoiling something a little bit, but Halcyon will come back. Okay. And his name, it was very difficult to name the character because he has some very unique abilities in a way that's probably tongue-in-cheek, but also something that I thought was interesting, and also another good counterbalance for Tony. It has nothing to do with his hearing. I thought that was important too, that the character's deaf, but it's not like he has some sort of hearing superpower. It actually has nothing to do with his hearing. He's just deaf. Okay. I thought that was important to show a character where it's like, it's not tied to their disability. Like I just didn't. It's like your disability is your superpower. Like I get that, but I think also that can be kind of extraordinarily condescending. And so he's deaf and he speaks sign language, and he'll be back in the book in a couple months, I think, and then he's kind of there, and he's got. I mean, he's not like a full bore like here comes a main character. It's just like a fun guy a fun person I created that serves a utility in the story, gives a little bit of a different perspective. I think it'll be interesting.
No, I think that's amazing. All right, two Paper Girl questions. I'm glad Frank is asking this question. Is Paper Girl still going to film in Chicago? Will Christopher still be writing comics while working on the show?
I will say, just because Amazon and Legendary are so scary, that I will still be writing comics while I'm writing the show.
Okay.
I will. And the other thing will be answered soon enough. But again, it's all up in the air because of it's all on the table because of COVID, right? I don't want to say anything and then it's up. But I'll write comics anywhere. Yeah.
And I know Francisco, he's a city. He works for the city, so I think that's why, man. It's like I think that might be a pipeline to Mayor Lori Lightfoot. I'm not really sure. I'm teasing you, Frank. Absolutely. And Ed makes an interesting point. He's right. Paper Girls has some unique and identifiable color work. Is there an approach for the show to adopt some similar color design use?
Yes, and we're not there yet. We're still very much focused on the scripts and some other things. But Cliff Chiang is he's an exec producer on the show, along with Brian.
That's great.
Yes. So I mean, like he's as much responsible for Paper Girls as Brian. Brian would say the same thing. A good writer knows that, and we're very excited to bring Cliff in when we start those conversations. I mean, I think that book is gorgeous. That book is unique, and the show would be foolish not to bring any of that in.
Very cool, man. And Eric Heiscast says, "Is She Could Fly still being adapted for television? Are you planning any other creator-owned work?" And you did mention, right, that you got a couple things coming up? Or
yeah, I have I'm working on 3 creator-owned books right now, and hopefully they'll be announced in the coming months. I don't know. It takes forever. And She Could Fly, is very much an active project. I have the pilot of that. It's very different from the comic book because, again, that adaptation process is very different. It was a really enlightening process for me. I'm really proud of the pilot. I think the pilot is something very special. AMC did pass on it. I did write it for them, but the producers being a pretty amazing Murderers Row producers, where it's Melissa Bernstein and Mark Johnson from Breaking Bad and Halt and Catch Fire and Better Call Saul. Karen Berger, obviously, a comics legend and creator of Vertigo. And then Keith Goldberg and Mike Richardson from Dark Horse. So we're all on the project. So it's like a very cool producer-driven project with me as the only writing EP. And AMC is still on as the studio. So they wouldn't air it, but like they're on as the studio. And I'm excited because I'm working with, some AMC executives that I've known since I was a professional writer. So that's been nice, and hopefully that finds a home. I really believe in that show. It's when you have something so personal and then you get to write it at all, it's special. And then when you get the opportunity to adapt it for an even bigger or different audience, it's very special. So fingers crossed, find out probably before the end of the year, see what happens.
That's excellent, Chris. Seriously, nice going. And Eric also acknowledges how much Halt and Catch Fire.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad the show is still alive these days, and people are still finding it years later. It's just so special to Chris and I. It was a lightning in a bottle experience. The farther you go away from something like that, I mean, it is a once in a lifetime thing. And Paper Girls has been great. We've both had our own separate projects, but when we talk about it, it's starting to sound like our high school football days, and I think we're starting to irritate people. But it was an awesome. Like, we still keep in touch with the writers. We still keep in touch with the cast. Somebody brought a Halt and Catch Fire embroidery to 4-color signing. and I signed it. And I didn't just do that. I took a picture of it and sent it to the cast because I have the cast on my phone. And I was like, guys, look at this. And they all chimed in and were like, this is amazing. And, you know, joking around with each other. It was nice.
That's hilarious. Here, final question, and it's a fun one. Do you have any interest in writing for Star Trek at IDW or on the screen?
100% yes. 150% yes.
Wow.
I bother IDW. I bother Jackson Lansing a lot. I bother Jody Hauser a lot.
Yeah.
I'm always like, what's going on with Star Trek? You know, the editors over there. I'm bothering my managers to get me meetings at Bad Robot and be like, what's going on with the, you know, 100. I would kill. You know what I mean? I would love it. I would love that's an IP that's out there that I would kill for. I would love it.
Chris, I'm a massive Star Trek fan. I have been for literally 50 years.
I discovered it when I was a kid and when I was in fourth grade, and then you know, and then I watched The Next Generation in middle school and stuff, all of it. And then it kind of just really fell by the wayside, and it's been the pandemic that actually made me rediscover it because there's a TV station, H&I, Heroes and Icons, plays at 6 nights
in Chicago.
Yes, and they show the remastered versions, and my sons, I have 2 sons, 3 and 7, sorry.
Oh,
and
perfect.
It's on right at their bedtime when they're getting ready, and so we turn it on to kind of get them calmed down, and my older son has gone nuts for it. I mean, he's like, he remembers every alien species. He remembers more than I do, and so I've rediscovered it through them, and it's been a blast. It's actually been like one of our nice pandemic rituals has been watching Star Trek every night. Yeah,
that sounds amazing, and I guess you got to come back because I really would love to talk more Star Trek with you.
Oh yeah,
I'm an OG fan.
Nice.
You know, and I'll admit, and you don't have to comment, but new Trek does frustrate me in a lot of ways. I do think
I haven't seen
it. Stuff.
I haven't seen it, you know, and I'm interested in it, but like, I mean, you can't. This is funny because the angle on my office is you can't see like all of my other crazier toys that I have in here, but like those little people you can't really see in the back. That's the full City on the Edge of Forever Playmates line, and also the Where No Man Was Done Before Playmates line lined up on the back. I've got the QMX figures over here. I have Mego. I mean, you know, this is my vault that I live in. Yeah.
I get it, man. No, and I'm like I said, 50 years of watching. I can't. It isn't an option for me not to watch new Star Trek. And that's the thing, because like, you know, I with my frustrations, people are like, well, they don't watch it anymore, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. I mean, I wouldn't call it my religion.
Yes.
But I will say that my only Christmas decoration, I don't have a tree. I don't do lights. I have the Hallmark ornament because it cracked me up that they made the one of the death of Spock from Star Trek 2.
That's incredible that they made
that. Because Spock died for our sins.
Was like, here we go. That's awesome. My sons don't know that happens yet, so I'm like really trying to tread around that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, truly, what a gift that they were able to come back, make so many movies, especially the original series cast, and really go deeper in those relationships and give the supporting cast fun things to do as well. And honor them as the rock stars we always knew they were, being fans of the original series. So yeah, I'm totally with you.
It's true.
Very funny. All right, dude, I'm gonna let you go, but yeah, that answer to Michael's question, I had to spend a minute on Star Trek, and I'll bug you about it maybe in a future talk. I hope you'll come back, Chris. Truly.
Would love to. Thanks everybody for questions and watching, and yeah, this was a lot of fun, man.
Hey, seriously, really appreciate it. Looking forward to new conversations in the months ahead. We can maybe, you know, at the end of Doom, circle back and also just take the temperature of Iron Man and see how things are going.
Yeah, I'll have 4 books out in December with, you know, Fantastic Four, Doom, the one shot with Santa, and Iron Man 4. So there's a bunch of stuff.
Are you taking, and forgive me, Chris, are you taking FF over from
No.
Dan?
No. Oh, I'm just doing the one shot. I just did the quarterly, the 30-page, like, Cronenberg National Lampoon's Vacation issue.
That's awesome. Chris, thanks a lot for hanging out today. This was great.
Thanks so much.
Be well. Chris Cantwell, everybody. How about it? Wasn't that terrific? Listen, I am putting in the chat right now the link for 7 o'clock Eastern time an hour and 45 minutes away, because I'll be talking to Fred Van Lente, another fine Iron Man writer, and Crystal Skillman, his fine playwright wife. They have created an off-Broadway play called King Kirby that is now being serialized as an audio podcast. Pretty amazing stuff, and I look forward to that conversation. So watch for that coming up at 7 o'clock Eastern. Again, the link is right there in the chat. Thanks a lot for watching.